Welcome back to the second episode on online teaching. In this episode, Steven and I address a little bit more on online teaching, and we go deep down to the real issues that come when preparing a class. So I hope you enjoy and that you can see the difference between a normal and traditional class and online teaching. Okay, have fun. So, Steven, welcome back. And here we go again talking about ESL online teaching. I would like to ask you today about the softwares that you use or you, as a teacher or as a student, with your students. What do you have to say about the softwares, the online teaching softwares?
Okay, as a teacher, I've used Adobe Connect and Microsoft Teams, and as a student, I've used Zoom.
And which one is your favorite? Let's go with as a student.
As a student, I've only used Zoom, and I cannot say that I was satisfied with the experience. I'm not sure how much of that is Zoom, how much of that is teacher, how much of that is a combination of the two. But I can say that I have yet to be fully satisfied using Zoom, at least as a student.
And what did you hate the most? Do you think it was the bad connection? What do you think, the chat, or how the information was displayed?
I guess part of it was how the information was displayed. But again, the teacher used PDFs, which were just scans of the book. So it wasn't it's like, when I say scan, I mean she put it on the photocopier and took a scan of it that way. So it wasn't really geared towards the medium. So that wasn't great. And as far as I'm aware, that there was no real way inside of Zoom for the teacher to manage the classroom. Adobe Connect, which I've used as a teacher, for example, it does have a hand-raising button. So when the student wants to say something, they can hit the button. The teacher can see that they want to say something, and the teacher can call on them. Or if numerous students call or raise their hands, the teacher can decide which one to call on. Whereas with Zoom, it was more of a free-for-all, and it was just sort of speak up whenever you wanted to say something, but then that led to awkwardness with not wanting to cut other people off or not wanting to step on their feet, things like that.
Yeah, I have used the Microsoft Teams quite a lot, and I tell you one thing that made the difference between Zoom and Microsoft for me was the teacher knew what she was doing. She knew what she was doing, and that for me was a big difference, because when someone is familiar with the software or took time to learn or watch videos online, it makes the class flow magnificently compared to someone who is on the go and is learning with the process and going through the motions there just to figure out what the hell is going on. So it also goes back to me to being prepared. It comes to, so the software becomes also part of the thing that the teacher needs to prepare for the class.
Yeah, I would imagine that a lot of teachers who have started teaching online in the past year probably did not receive actual training in the programs they're using. It was probably a sort of, oh, we have to do this, now here's the program and figure it out. But I think, classroom English and online English are not 100% the same thing. I think they have to be treated as separate entities. And I think it kind of feels like a lot of teachers have a steep learning curve ahead of them because they're not used to teaching online.
Absolutely. And I have to go a little bit further on this because I want to make this, I want to have this discussion because not a lot of people are having. It is part of the curriculum, I think, now in universities when you're getting your bachelor in teaching that you should be prepared for online teaching. And you should discuss the programs and softwares are the main thing. And how to behave in a class will become something of a topic that people will say. How the people are already talking about how to dress up, how to behave with the kids, how to behave with the students. There will come a time that we will be used to a certain standard when we're having classes. And I think that and the books that we our teachers are used to use in the classroom will change because nowadays you don't really need the book when you're doing online. Okay, with some of the students they still have. I have a physical book when I take my classes, but I still think that I lose some time because I want to write in the computer because I'm in the computer, and I want to use the computer. I don't want to use the book. If
Uh-huh.
I had the book in a digital format, it would be much better for me for my learning process. There's always this breaking. There's always this thing between the past and the future, and they're still trying to connect both and see what happens. And I'm feeling like it's not the same thing. There should be two distinct things: online teaching and classroom teaching. And
Hmm.
these two things should not be mixed. What do you think about that?
I agree. Yeah, like I said, I think there are differences. They're not huge differences, but I think they are big enough that a teacher who, and a lot of the times in the past year at least, we're talking about teachers who have 10, 20, 30 years of experience in the classroom. And all of a sudden they're expected to go online and start teaching that way. So, of course, they're going to bring in what they know from classroom teaching to the online program. And it doesn't really work that way. I guess it's good enough. It gets the job done, but it's not maximizing the potential. And so I think either teachers or school boards or whomever, they need to start taking a look at what's going on, how long they expect to be online, and really coming up with some training programs or something for these teachers to really get used to the programs they're using and what they can really do with it. Because it's not just a blackboard or a whiteboard like they're used to. It's different.
Yeah, and that goes also with two things that I think is like if you're gonna explain grammar, there is someone who already did a video on YouTube on explaining English grammar that is pretty good. So you can send that to the students beforehand, and you don't have to lose. You just have to ask them questions if they have any doubts or have any questions. So that would be part. So I don't think the classes online should take as long as the classes in the classroom format. They should be a little bit shorter and to the point because the information you're getting during your online class you can get on YouTube videos. And mm,
That's an interesting point, yeah, because students are already outside of the classroom because they're never actually going inside of the classroom. Traditionally, you only have the students for that, hour, 15 minutes or whatever long the class is, but now you have them sort of at a greater period. So you could prepare in advance a video or something, send it to them, have them watch it, have them come up with, because it's kind of like, oh, for next week you have to read chapter 2, and then we'll come in and talk about it. And it is that sort of thing. So for next week, watch this video, we'll talk about it. With traditional read chapter 2 situations, the big problem is students not reading the chapter, then coming in totally blank. And maybe, I don't know, 10-minute YouTube video is not that crazy for them. They can watch that in the morning when they wash their face and brush their teeth, sort of thing. So yeah, that's the thing, though. That's where you have to appreciate the online format as a separate thing that brings its own separate advantages.
but yeah, and in that note, I like to have some. An experience that I had was with a teacher that overdid the online format. So she had like websites coming and sharing links for all the students to go to. And those links were sometimes competitions. There were like programs that she had and she liked it. And then I thought, okay, this is not good because if I make a mistake, everyone knows it's very clear who wins or loses here. And I saw that the student that lost never asked questions again. He level asking questions, so the competition is clear. And I'd have to say the teacher that did that, she did not go 4 years to school to teach. She would just okay, you can speak the English, you can speak the language well, so come and teach. So this kind of thing also drives me a little bit insane with all these new softwares or all these new things that people are not really stopped to think about how the didactics of that works. And I remember the competition online for me was horrible. Have you ever see something like that?
Well, I think that's less of an issue with online and technology than it is with just the teacher. I think the class I took. Um, I guess it is a sort of thing too with online classes where the teacher will say, "Oh, does anyone have any questions?" And once, like as an individual, no, I don't have any questions. But I don't want to say that because I don't want to be speaking for the group. You know, you don't need, and you probably don't even want 30 people all saying no. Because even if that was the case, even if everyone was saying no, if one person says yes, you're not going to hear that because everyone else is saying no. So it creates kind of an uncomfortable situation where someone asks you a question that you're not really supposed to answer, but at the same time, the teacher needs you to answer to move on. But I guess in a classroom that might be different because the kids could like shake their head or something, or it would be an invitation for someone to raise their hand. And when the teacher sees, oh, okay, everyone's shaking their head, no one's raising their hand, we can move on. And so I guess in that sense, maybe students also need a sort of training for Zoom, which individual teachers, I suppose, could do. They could spend their first class, the first meeting, being like, okay, here's how I'm going to run this class, right? Um, if I say, do you have any questions? And no one answers for 3 seconds, then I'm going to move on, that kind of thing. But, you do need to take the steps to really kind of develop and verbalize these rules. And I think because teachers are new to online teaching and they're used to more nonverbal options, I don't think that a lot of teachers, and maybe even the field in general, is there yet.
Yeah, and that comes to me. It comes to me as a thought that I had was also when you're asking your students, and let's say you have 10 students, if you don't follow always the same order of asking questions, it takes forever for them for the microphone to turn on. So if you ask a person, "Hey, X," could you answer that? And the person is not ready to answer, so it needs to turn on the microphone. You lose time here. But if you have always the same order, you're asking A, B, C, D, and people already know. Okay, after C, I'm ready. You're ready. I already have my mic on, and let's get going. You feel the flow of the class always in a good vibe. Then, rather than people who are not there, you don't know where the people are when the mics and cameras are off. So that kind of blows. And that it's one of the things that, as you said, the students need also some knowledge of how to behave online. And this thing is still going on. We're still getting there because online class, I feel it's more about 50, it's a 50-50. There is not only the teacher there teaching. You have to have the student paying attention to that. Otherwise, he or she will not understand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And at the same time, he can just go and watch a video about that. So, what's the real deal when it comes to, okay, I'm teaching ESL. Should I have a long term goal here? I'm going class by class. When I teach and I have my class, I already have my goal of the number of words, the vocabulary building that this girl that I'm teaching will have in the next 25 classes.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when you have a book, a course book, and you do the exercises like the traditional way, you don't have that goal. And you just lose yourself trying to do the same thing you would in a classroom. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just driving me insane because they are not seeing that this is a complete different thing. What do you think when it comes in terms of software and how the teacher should behave when he prepares the class? We already talked about software. We already talked a little bit of the problems there. But when the teacher is preparing a class, should the
Mm-hmm.
teacher go, this is my course book, I'm going to use the course book as I used in the past, but I'm going to do online? Or the teacher should prepare itself in a complete different way, more towards answering questions that the students already have from videos and vocabulary building and pronunciation? What do you think the teacher should be focusing more the pre-class?
Um, I guess that depends on what the teacher is comfortable with. Each teacher has their own style, and I would say that whatever general style you use in classroom is the same general style you should use online. you should really teach to your strengths. If you feel more comfortable with the textbook, you should use the textbook. And I think with a lot of textbooks, maybe not a lot, with some textbooks, they do have digital copies. I think it's typically PDFs, but you could use that. And then, things like the audio component that comes with it is easier to manage online. You don't have to, mess around with CDs or anything like that. So if that's your style or your preference, then you should continue doing that online. If you're more, holistic in the classroom, you should be that as well online. I think just whatever the teacher's personal style is, they should adapt that to being online. They should not try to reinvent the wheel just because of things. I mean, when it comes to their own teaching style, obviously, like we were saying, you have to classroom management is very different, but the actual teaching of the subject should generally be the same.
That sounds fantastic. Steven, I think that's enough for today. I mean, we can continue this in the next video when we're going to talk a little bit. I think can be the last episode that we address online teaching, but we'll see. Again, Steven, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here in my channel, and I hope I see you again.
Thanks for having me.
All right.